And welcome back to EDH Deck Building. I am your host, Demo, and we are building janky decks in Commander once again. And I got a really interesting one this time. I did a video a little while back about cards that in the 99 you could build your deck around, right? So not your Commander, a card in the 99 that was impactful enough or interesting enough that you could build your entire deck around. I did a poll. You guys all voted on the poll, and the winner of the poll was Panglacial Worm. That's right. We are building our entire deck around Panglacial Worm. And this is not like my, these should be commanders videos. This is Panglacial Worm in the 99. We are going to have a commander for this deck. And Panglacial Worm is a particularly interesting one. I'm actually kind of happy that this one won because I thought it makes for a really interesting build around. 5 green, Worm 9/5. Has Trample and has one of the most interesting, unique abilities in the history of the game. While you're searching your library, you may cast Panglacial Worm from your library. This ability is incredibly interesting. There's a lot of really interesting interactions here because it's actually while you're searching your library. So as soon as you start searching your library for any reason, it allows you to cast your Panglacial Worm, and then you finish resolving whatever the search effect is. Very unique in the way it's doing it. And why this works particularly well with the theme that we want, we're building around a card in our 99, is obviously we don't have to go get it, right? We don't have to search for our Panglacial Worm because obviously we just have to search our library in any way whatsoever, and we can cast our Panglacial Worm directly from our library. So the part of building around a card in the 99 that you usually have to worry about, which is getting it, that part we don't have to worry about at all. That's a really easy fix. Now, first things first is we need a commander for this deck. Obviously, it's got to be green, and it somehow has to fit with what we're doing. Now, you could go the really easy route here, okay, and have a commander that searches. I think that's the best bet. I mean, obviously, green can do a lot of searching already. What works really great with Panglacial Worm is it's obviously 7 mana, so you got to do a lot of ramping. Green does that really well. The ramping also happens to be searching. So all of that stuff works together. So just throwing a bunch of ramp in the deck, that's the easy part. But I also want a commander that's searching, and I want a commander that is searching that doesn't cost mana. There are commanders in green that will search your library, but you have to pay mana into it, and we already have to pay the 7 mana for our Panglacial Worm, so I didn't want an ability that is going to be costing us mana and then we have to pay the 7 on top of that. I preferred to have an ability that was free. There's a lot of commanders you could use here. Captain Sisay seems like a great one because that is a searching ability that doesn't cost mana. You just tap your Sisay, and then while you're searching for a legendary permanent, you can cast your Panglacial Worm. However, I didn't go with Sisay for 2 reasons. One, a little bit of a target as a commander, I find. We want a commander that's not going to be as much of a target. Also, the legendary theme didn't fit with Panglacial Worm at all. I mean, you could just put a lot of other stuff that fit with Sisay in the deck, but I wanted something that was going to fit with ultimately we get our Panglacial Worm into play, and then what are we going to do, right? Because once you have that 9/5 trample creature, what are you going to do after that? So I decided to go with Kodama of the Westtree, 2 and a green spirit, 3/3 with reach. Modified creatures you control have trample. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. So why did I choose this guy? And obviously we're in mono green here. 2 reasons why I chose this commander. It has a free search ability, right? Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage, you get to search. So that is a searching ability that doesn't cost mana. That is really important. We can just connect with a modified creature, we get to search our library, and then we have all our mana untapped, and we can cast our Panglacial Worm a lot sooner than we normally would. Also, I think the modified theme fits here, right? Because once we get our Panglacial Worm into play, we're probably going to be wanting to put some stuff on it. It's a 9/5 trampler, that's pretty good, but getting it even bigger, I think, is going to be important, right? That's going to be the theme of the deck. So both of what Kodama of the Westtree is doing, I think, fits in this deck. Now, of course, giving our modified creatures trample isn't going to be helpful with the Panglacial Worm because it already has it, but that's okay. That's just an added bonus for some of our other creatures. Also, the ramping, right? We are ramping. Our secret commander here costs 7 mana, and Kodama of the Westtree is going to get those lands into play really, really quickly so that we can cast it a lot earlier and start going to town. So just everything about this, the more I thought about it, the more I'm like, yep, this is the commander I think we want to build around. So we do need some other modified creatures in here. 1-drops like Skargan, Pit Skulk, and Experiment 1 are going to be great, right? Just 1 mana creatures we can throw down right away, start going to town. They're going to be modified because they're going to have counters on them. And then we can start ramping. I got a few others in here as well. And I also have some of those auras that we want in this deck. Some of my personal favorites like One with Nature and Mark of Sakiko that are going to be doing double duty again, right? They're going to be auras that we can put on our creatures. So that's going to make them modified. But then on top of that, they are ramping us, right? One with Nature, every time that enchanted creature connects, we get to search our library for a basic land card, put into play tap. So also doing the searching thing, right? It's fitting everything we want to be doing. Mark of Sakiko, when the enchanted creature deals combat damage to a player, you add that much green to your mana pool. This mana doesn't empty as phases end, but we don't have to actually worry about this. This actually works particularly well where if we put it, say, on our commander, we attack with our commander, we get 3 green mana out of it, and then we get to go search for a land, right? Both of those triggers will happen at the same time, and you will stack them so that you get the green mana, and then you go search for the land, and then you can use that mana that you just got to cast your Pan Glacial Wurm from your library while you're searching. We also have a really big creature, right? Essentially our hidden commander, a 9 power creature is really, really big. So I wanted to take advantage of that while also taking advantage of the modified theme once again. So fight effects work great when your creature has big power, and I took stuff that was modified and then also doing that. So Struggle for Skemfark, for example, 3 and a green sorcery, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, then that creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control and has foretell 1 green. So this is fitting the modified theme. We can now modify our creatures with this. If we have our Pan Glacial Wurm in play, we can use it to fight something else, and it's going to be dealing 10 damage. That's pretty good. Warbriar Blessing is an aura that's doing this. 1 and a green aura, enchant creature you control, gets +0/+2. So this is going to be a 9/7 Pan Glacial Wurm now. It's going to be modified, and also when it enters the battlefield, enchanted creature fights up to 1 target creature you don't control. So again, it's removal, it's modified, it's doing everything we want to do in this deck. Fight Rigging from Nuka Penna I thought was a great fit here. 2 and a green enchantment, has Hideaway 5, which of course means when it enters the battlefield, you can look at the top 5 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. At the beginning of combat on your turn, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So it's fitting the modified theme, right? We can modify our Pan Glacial Wurm or any of our other creatures if we want to. Then if you control a creature with power 7 or greater, you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. Well, heck, our Pan Glacial Wurm has a power of 9, so that's going to be fulfilled instantly if we have our hidden commander in play. Bow of Nylea is a fantastic fit in this deck. It's a fantastic fit in most decks. It's just doing so much. I love this card so much. 1 green, legendary enchantment artifact. Attacking creatures you control have Death Touch. And of course, as I've mentioned many times before, Death Touch and Trample work really, really well together. Now our Pan Glacial Wurm, when we attack, even if it's just a 9/5, we only have to deal 1 damage to that blocking creature because it has Death Touch, and then the rest will trample over. But then on top of that, we can pay 1 and a green and tap, choose 1, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. Hey, that fits the modified theme, right? So that's going to be great in the deck. Also can deal 2 damage to target creature with flying, or you gain 3 life, or you put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library in any order. It's doing so much. This card's fantastic. But of course, that bottom part really, really is important. Remember, this is not our commander. This is a hidden commander, and we can search our library for it. So the last ability on Bow of Nylea there, put up to 4 target cards from your graveyard on the bottom of your library. Now if our Pan Glacial Wurm dies, we can tuck it on the bottom of our library, and when we search our library again, we can then cast it again, right? So effects like that are also going to be really, really important. Of course, I have Rift Sweeper in here as well for that reason, in case our secret commander gets exiled. 1 and a green, Elf Shaman 2/2. When Rift Sweeper enters the battlefield, shuffle target exiled face-up card into its owner's library. So we're going to shuffle our Pan Glacial Wurm back into our library, and then of course, searching will easily let us get it again. This is why I think Pan Glacial Wurm is such an interesting build around. I also have some Voltron-y pieces because this is sort of a Voltron deck. It's a modified theme, also a Voltron theme. Those all sort of fit together. Again, that's why I chose Kodama the Westry as the commander. So I got Basilisk Collar, Hammer of Nazan, great equipments. Again, Basilisk Collar giving that Death Touch, but also Lifelink. Hammer of Nazan, gonna give our secret commander +2/+0 and indestructible. So now it's going to be an 11/5 trample indestructible. That's pretty good. Again, the big power is what I really, really wanted to take advantage of. And you can do that easily with cards like Greater Good, for example, or Momentous Fall. With Greater Good, we can sacrifice a creature, draw cards equal to its power, then discard 3 cards. So now we can draw 9 cards from our Panglacial Worm, assuming that it doesn't have anything else at all on it, and then discard 3 cards. That's pretty good. Momentous Fall will allow us to draw 9 cards and then gain life equal to its toughness as well. So we'll also gain 5 life. Ideally, we don't want to be sacrificing it, but the situation is going to arise where our opponents will try to kill it. So having these effects readily available at instant speed is going to be really, really important. Threw a couple other great creatures in here that want to be modified, like Froghemoth and Ghalta Primal Hunger. Froghemoth can modify itself, right, by putting +1/+1 counters on itself, also as trample. So it works with all those other great Death Touch cards. Ghalta is particularly good here. 10 green Elder Dinosaur 12/12. That's a lot of mana. However, cost X less to cast, where X is the total power of creatures you control, and has trample. So again, if we have our Panglacial Worm in play, this guy is going to cost 9 less. Even if we don't have any other creatures, it's going to cost 9 less. It's only going to cost 3 mana. So that seems like a great fit, and fits with all the sort of Voltron-y stuff we were doing. You know, it is nice to have a little bit of backups for your hidden commander in case, you know, you can't get it back after it gets exiled or something else. You don't want to completely put yourself in a box. Got to throw a couple other creatures in here that fit with the modified theme, because why not? Gyre Sage, of course, which wants counters on it, because when you tap it, you're going to add green mana for each +1/+1 counter on Gyre Sage. And of course, the Evolve works really, really good here because we have lots of big creatures, particularly our Panglacial Worm. And I also threw Kosei Penitent Warlord in the deck, because why not? 1 green Ogre Samurai 05, as long as it is equipped and has a counter on it and is enchanted. It has, whenever Kosei Penitent Warlord deals combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards, and it deals that much damage to each other opponent. So this is another little hidden commander maybe in the deck that could work with what we're doing. We have lots of auras, equipments, and counter stuff, so it is possible that we can throw all 3 of those on this guy and go to work with him as well. Also did throw in Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse in the deck, which a lot of people will see and go, what? Why is that in a mono green deck? It's searching, right? I didn't want to be held back at all by searching our library. I have lots of ways to tuck that Panglacial Worm back into our library, so as long as we can continually search for it, we can always keep getting it back. We're going to have lots of lands in play, so we can just keep recasting it and recasting it. There's no commander tax here, right? This is the advantage to having Panglacial Worm as our hidden commander, is it's always going to cost 7. It's not going to cost 9 and then 11 and then, right? Every time our opponents kill our Panglacial Worm, we can just search our library if it's in there and then cast it for 7 again. So it's never going to be harder for us to cast it. Once we get to 7 mana, we're going to be good. So having these lands in there that you normally wouldn't see in a mono green deck is going to be good, because it is just an easy way for us to search our library so we can cast that Panglacial Worm. Really, really interesting one, I think. I play tested this deck, and it was pretty easy for me to get my Panglacial Worm into play. And then, you know, once you get it in play, you just start going to town. It depends on how you want to play this deck, right? If you play this deck, you don't have to get your Panglacial Worm at all. You can just play with all the other cards in your deck, but then sort of what's the point of doing it, right? The whole point of the deck is to get your Panglacial Worm into play and then start hammering your opponents with it. How much you do that depends on you, right? If you're playing this deck, it all depends on how much you want to focus around Panglacial Worm. You don't have to. You can just use it when it's convenient for you. You will be searching your library all the time, so being able to just cast a 9/5 trample creature from your library at your convenience when you have the mana open is also really, really nice. So the deck list for this guy is in the description below. Feel free to check it out if you want to. That is it for today, and thanks for tuning in.